Let's talk about trust. So if you believe in the process, universal process of creation, law of attraction is part of that certainly, but there's a larger process than just law of attraction. That's just a component of it. But if you understand the universal process of creation, you understand that our mindset creates our reality. It creates our life experience. And if you have a more abundant mindset, you are going to have a more abundant life. If you have a more victim-focused mindset, you are going to experience more things that are going to place you in the conditions of being a victim, and so on. Regardless of what the mindset is, that's what's creating your experience. For most of us, our experience is a mix of things. In fact, for all of us, it really is, because we live in this environment of duality. There is positive and what we would call negative aspects of everything, anything and everything. So we're moving through this experience of duality, and some of us are receiving more of the things that we want and less of the things that we typically don't want, while others are receiving more things that are unwanted and less of the things that they want. The Tya practice is all about teaching yourself, shifting your mindset to receiving more of the things that you want. Well, in the practice, we understand that the universe is delivering well-being. We only need to look at nature to understand that thriving and well-being and evolution and expansion and all of those things are just natural states of being. And beings, and in this case, human beings with our ego, we are the ones creating the separation from that abundance and creating the grit that creates the life journey, the human life journey in our case, meaning that journey of imperfection, with all of those imperfections leading us to new, broader desires, and those new, broader desires realized leading to an expansive experience, an expansion of consciousness. That's why we are here. That's why we're in physical. And the reason Tya is called Tya, the T is trust. Trust your abundance. So trust is huge, huge. Because if the universe is only delivering abundance, and I know that there's plenty of thoughts around, well, it's not. There's plenty of non-abundant things in the world, and plenty of non-abundant aspects to being a human being, or any being really, because every form of life experiences lack in some way, and certainly ultimately experiences a separation from the physical environment that we consider an unwanted experience, or may consider that. But in the practice, we understand from the stream's teachings that the universe, God, source, however we want to refer to that, is nothing but abundance. And that the physical experience, the physical vehicle, the physical portion of our consciousness, our ego, is the thing that separates us from that abundance. That's why some human beings are experiencing more abundance and some are experiencing less. The whole spectrum of. The ability to trust and return yourself to trust, even in the face of your obstacles, is the Tya practice. Getting better and better and better at allowing that trust in the universe, which allows that abundance to be our natural state of being. So my question is, where are you with trust? How much are you trusting? And if you're not sure, if you believe that you're trusting, but you're still not receiving the things that you want, well, then you've got some work to do. Because if you are letting go and trusting, then you are in a state of what a lot of people call allowing. You're allowing the abundance of the universe to flow to you and actually show up for you in 3D form, that it can actually be physically realized, not just imagined. So we talk about all creation being imaginary first. Of course it is. All creation is formed in the imagination. So that is a consciousness creation. And then the physical formation of it follows that. And what we are taught very often in the Matrix is exactly reverse of that. We are taught that we're supposed to see evidence of something before we allow ourselves to believe it. You got to prove it. But how do we prove things? We create and we prove things by imagining that they are real and imagining how they are happening, and then allowing reality to fill in the gap, because we're imagining this thing into being. We're imagining this new creation into happening. And when we trust it, it happens. When we don't trust it, it doesn't show up. That's the difference. So all of these ideas about these mantras and these rituals and all of these things, they're all great if they lead you to trust. If you are meditating every day and focusing on something and you are able to maintain trust that it's showing up for you, then it's going to be. The kicker in all of this, though, is that if you are trying to perform some sort of ritualistic belief system on a daily basis to make something come into physical reality, you are very likely doing that. In fact, not likely, you're absolutely doing that from different positions on the vibrational scale, because we're not static vibrationally. We're always all over the place vibrationally. And we all know that because of the way that we feel. Our emotions are an expression of our vibration. That's our vibration realized. So we know that there are days that our emotions are more positive and hopeful and believing and worthy, and there are days that our vibration is something less than that, all the way down to being unworthy, to not believing, to feeling completely unworthy. That's part of the physical journey, and of course in the human journey we go even deeper into that, because we're operating in this matrix of belief that was designed to work in reverse of universal law. So it takes us away from trust. 3D reality, you've got to be realistic. You've got to be a realist. You're daydreaming. Stop that. You're living in a fantasy world. I mean, how many times have we all heard this stuff? But the people that allow themselves to daydream and live in the fantasy world with belief have these magical lives. They're the most celebrated among us. The rich, the famous. They allow themselves to go there and believe and trust, at least on certain topics that place them in that position. So we all know that if we're not receiving the experience, or not experiencing the experience, I should say, that we want, it's because there's a gap in trust. We have not yet brought ourselves to an authentic place of trust, period. You're not trusting because you're not believing. And if you're not believing, then you're not receiving. Period, period, period. There's no other answer to that. And I promise you, there's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. You're not damaged. You're not irreparably damaged by your parents. You know, all these belief systems are out there. But I have worked with people all over the world, at this point, hundreds of people, and getting them beyond that, getting them beyond the way they were raised to think, getting them beyond their belief system that they created for themselves by default. So I now know that anybody can. And it's all about understanding what is blocking the trust. What is blocking the trust are the old belief systems that you created for yourself as a reaction to what you created for yourself. Because you create your reality, you do from day one. And that's a whole other topic that we can talk about on Tya Talk that I'm not going to dive into today. But if we accept that we're creating our own reality, which is incredibly empowering, there's a lot of stuff many of us don't want to own in our experience, especially going back to early childhood. How in the hell would I have created that? Why? We get into all of that in these teachings, but let's assume that we create every single thing that we experience. And in that experience, let's also understand and assume that we are creating our own belief system. It's not something that's delivered from above. It's not something that's predetermined. Yes, you project into a set of circumstances that has a lot to do with your family and ancestry and all that stuff. I don't go too deep into all of that, because every time I hear people talking about ancestral lineage and things like that, where you're paying the debts of your ancestors and all of that stuff, that is really disempowering talk. And I don't believe that for a second. And that's why I don't get into, I'm paying the debt of somebody that came before me, and I'm coming in, and because of karma, I'm having to live this certain experience. That's very victim focused. It's very self victimized talk. And I don't care to get into that because I completely believe, I know that you can change your trajectory. You absolutely can. And that's the work that we do. Now, when I talk about changing, I'm not talking about going from someone that has moved through a life of challenge, as we all have, to moving into a life of perfection. I repeat that over and over and over again because it's this idea, this black and white idea that it's all or nothing, completely right, completely left. That's the matrix. That's the matrix. There's no evidence of that at all. It's just a belief system that everything has got to be black and white. I think it simplifies things for people, perhaps, but I see no evidence of that. I think everything is a spectrum. Everyone is on a spectrum on every single topic. Absolutely. Because we're vibrational beings, and that spiral is a spiral. You spiral up, you spiral down. And whatever your high is and what your low is, there's always going to be an in-between period of those things where you're sort of morphing between those things all the time because it's vibrational. It's not a switch. You don't switch from the top of your spiral to the bottom and the top and back again. You're going through this range up and down the spiral. And that creates the human journey. And that imperfection that we talk about has value. In fact, the stream very often talks about the perfection of imperfection, that the imperfections of our world and the imperfections of our life journey are all gifts that we create for ourselves to inspire us toward new creation. But we're operating in this matrix where there's always this wall that the matrix creates, that there's certain things that we just can't allow ourselves to appreciate. We're just not allowed to go there. I was talking to someone yesterday that is still in that space of not allowing themselves to appreciate certain aspects of the human experience. I will never, but they're not very deep into the practice yet. So as you get deeper into the practice and you start working through these things for yourself and you start working through your own detuning process, it's like peeling away the layers of an onion. And the more you get to the center of the onion, the more you start to comprehend that, oh yeah, I can forgive that. I can accept that. And ultimately, I can appreciate that. And the appreciation piece seems to be the thing that's way out here for most of humanity. Forgiveness is over here, acceptance is somewhere in there, maybe they flip back and forth, but appreciation is way over there. Well, we are all about radical appreciation of all that is. And someone that's new to the practice will immediately put a hand up to that. No, I can't appreciate these things. You cannot yet appreciate these things. I promise you, you can come to appreciate any and everything that you've experienced in your life journey, and you can come to appreciate any and every aspect of humanity. And in fact, the more you allow Source to be your state of being, and it's in all of us, absolutely in all of us, the more you can access that mindset. And the more you access that mindset, the more you are not only at peace, but appreciative of the entire human experience. All of it. All of it. I understand from this higher perspective that these things are created as part of the journey, that we're eternal beings, that our human experience is very limited and very time limited, if you will, in this experience where we're perceiving things in a linear way. And we are not our human journey. Our human journey is a tiny grain of sand in all that we are. And we view our human lives this way. It takes the pressure off the human journey, first of all. And secondly, it brings you to that higher perspective so that you can enjoy your human journey more. You can let things go. You can move past old belief systems that are quite limiting. You can move yourself out of the matrix. And when you do, then you can access that perspective of appreciation of all that is. There's nothing wrong going on in our world. All of this fear, all of this judgment, and it's being amped up now more than possibly ever. And most of that has to do with our ability to communicate, which is certainly more advanced than it has been in recorded history that we're aware of. So we have this ability to communicate in 3D that is very different than how we communicate from our eternal perspective, which is a vibrational communication. We have direct ability to communicate now, talk about things, compare ideas, compare notes, compare thoughts But again, we're operating in this environment of duality. So what happens in that? You're going to have differing opinions, and you're going to have differing opinions that run the gamut. But the matrix leads us to think black, white, that's it, nothing in between. Left, right, that's it, nothing in between. Right, wrong, good, evil, that's it, nothing in between. That's the matrix. It's very simplistic thinking if you think about it, because it's easy to sort of comprehend. That's either right or it's wrong, and that's all I have to do is think something's right or wrong, and I'm done. But it's certainly more work, more complex to go deeper into, well, there's aspects of this that are desired, and there's aspects of this that are undesired. There are aspects of this thought that are expansive for humanity, and there's aspects of this thought that are quite limiting. I could take what I just said and apply that to just about any topic you can imagine. It's true, because you're thinking in a more sophisticated way. And when I say more sophisticated, it's allowing that open-minded concept of exploring both sides of any and every topic. I've always loved that, because I've always understood at different levels that is source. That is the source perspective. To see through the eyes of someone else, see through the eyes of a different perspective, and be accepting of that is certainly more sophisticated than closing yourself off to thoughts and ideas that are opposite of what you have been indoctrinated in, or what you've created for yourself in your belief system. So we have all of this gray area, all of this vibrational area, and there's a lot of fear being peddled in the world right now. Well, when you're observing all of this fear in a high vibration, and you can run across things like that in a higher vibration because you're not judging it, you're still able to witness it and not be party to it, however, because you know how to return your thoughts to trust. Even if you're not completely up your spiral, if you're a little below neutral and you stumble upon a book or a teaching or a newscast or a social media post that sparks a little bit of fear, you can always catch that fear. That fear feels very uncomfortable for me at this point. I think it feels uncomfortable for everyone, but we're so indoctrinated into fear in our culture, in the matrix, that we just sort of run on it. And once you start really recognizing where you are vibrationally all the time and start recognizing when fear is active, then you can catch yourself and you can remind yourself to return to trust. And if you start doing this habitually, it becomes a practice, and the practice starts automatically returning you to trust. And then you're able to observe something like that from a completely higher perspective, and the trigger is gone, it's erased, it's detuned. So that's how you start moving your belief system in the direction of trust. You work on it, you chip away at it, if you will, little by little, day after day after day. And before long, you begin to change. Your reality begins to shift. You begin to open your mind up. You begin to accept counter ideas to what you were once able to process. And now you can start experiencing the world in a very different way, with less fear, less judgment all the time, systematically, because you have a practice of returning to trust. You have a practice of trusting more, trusting that no matter what fear is being peddled to you, that you're going to be okay. You're going to move through the human experience. You're going to expand your consciousness in this vibrational journey of contrasts. And ultimately, you are going to be a more sophisticated, i.e., intelligent version of yourself eternally, because you've had this physical experience, not because you projected into humanity and had a perfect life and manifested every single thing that you wanted, just crushed it, and you were a rock star and everything was great and perfect. No one is experiencing that. No one is experiencing that because we're not here for that. There's no value in that. Once we move to a state of perfection, we cease to be physical, because there's no longer a need for the physical journey. The physical journey is one of imperfection. Aging, sickness, poverty, storms that come through, all of our challenges, all of these things are our own creation of consciousness. And in separating ourselves from that source perspective via our ego, via moving through this vibrational flow that we're in, we separate ourselves from that. We separate ourselves from the abundance. We create unwanted things in our paths, and those unwanted things serve as the platform for our next new creation. Whether that creation is just the having of the experience and knowing what it's like, or the creation is the having of the experience and consciously creating something to move out of it or solve it or being inspired by it to create something new in 3D. We are expansive beings by nature. That's why there's always new technology. There's always improvement. There's always something that we're working on. But no matter how much technology we create, how much improvement we create, there's still going to be the unwanted aspect of things because we're in duality. So there's always going to be something. As soon as we solve a problem, we're going to give birth to another one. And that is the human journey. That is the physical journey. That is the nature of all physical creation. So the judging of that stuff, that's the matrix. The matrix has taught us to judge the unwanted as should not be. There's a difference. Hear me out here. There's a difference in something that's unwanted and discerning a preference that this is not wanted and this shouldn't be. And understand that 100% of our suffering resides in the should not be piece of that we create. We create an obstacle for ourselves vibrationally when we move through a lower vibrational period in our lives. And that happens all the time naturally. We don't solve that. We're not here to solve that. And we move through that lower vibrational period. We create something unwanted in our pathway. We experience the unwanted thing. And you have two choices. You appreciate the experience that you've created for yourself, which is what we do in the Tya practice. It's fucking magical. Try it. It changes your whole life, changes your whole reality. I promise you it will. I promise you it will. I have examples of that now going back for years on my podcast. Because every time I create something like that, I create how it expands me, how I get off of that plateau and get moving again when I create a storm for myself. I'll never stop doing that as long as I'm in physical, and I'll certainly never not appreciate it again because I have seen the other side of things. I have seen that I can meet that in joy, have that magical experience of moving through the unwanted. Didn't say it was wanted, said it was appreciated. Moving through the unwanted experience and appreciation of it, even if it's just the appreciation of the fact that I understand that I created it, that good is going to come from this, and I can't wait to see how that's going to show up for me. Period. It's as simple as that, because I have taught myself to not rush or even go to that this shouldn't be space. That creates the suffering in the moment. That creates the prolonged suffering. That should not be vibration creates all of our trauma from our past, all of that crap that we hang on to that informs our belief system. That's all our own creation. And that is great news because that means we created it. Therefore, we can change it. We can detune it. We can turn it to dust. And eventually that dust will dissipate. It will no longer be part of our human journey. That should not be. So whatever's next, illness, spinning out financially, going broke, the ending of a romantic relationship, having a rift in our family, having the loss of a loved one even. I have enough experience in teaching Tya and watching people move through their life experience with these tools. I have seen people experience what we discern as the worst of the worst and move through it in grace and ease because they understand on a higher perspective. That gives you the power to trust because you're no longer suffering in that this shouldn't be. It's returning to trust. It really is the basis of faith. If you think about where religion originated, all religions probably originated there. We're all channels. We're all receiving this stuff, not all at the same way, and we haven't all gone as deep into it as I have, certainly. And that's okay. I'm here to share it with all of you so that you can take the tools, apply it in your own life, and go as deep as you want to go yourselves. The Tya practice is all about that. Go internal and prove this stuff to yourself, and then trust a little more and a little more and a little more and a little more, and then make that your life practice, make that your belief system, and see what happens. Life gets better, more abundance flows, you're more and more able to trust. And then pretty soon you start realizing that this finish line that we all believe we want to cross, where we learn Tya and then live in perfection for the rest of our days, doesn't exist. The finish line doesn't exist for anyone or anything other than the crossing over the death experience. That's the finish line. When you exit your physical vehicle and return your consciousness to its completed state, meaning you're no longer having this sort of this where you kind of rent this physical vehicle and move through the life journey like a weekend trip, as the stream says. And you part of being in that physical vehicle is its operating system. The operating system is the ego. The ego's function is in duality. The ego's function is discerning preferences that you want to experience while you're here, and also creating via the mindset that's separation from source. The separation from source is a natural aspect of being in physical, to give you a physical journey, to give you an expansive journey. That's what it's there for. Therefore, anything and everything that we place in our paths that once created suffering for us no longer has to do that. In the boot camp journey, that's a lot of what we do. The work that we do that really allows people, and they go through Tya boot camp, to cement this as their way of being forever, is going in and going deep into the childhood stuff, the things that really informed our belief system early on, the ones that we created by default, and changing those things so the belief system starts to change. And then when you realize, if I can go back and change that stuff, then I can change anything. That's the magic of boot camp. So right now, regardless of you ever gone through our Thai Academy or not, it doesn't matter. You can start using these tools and you can start applying this stuff simply by realizing when you're slapping that this should not be labeled on something, and that's what's creating your suffering. Well, wait a minute, I feel like shit right now. Why do I feel like shit? Because I've labeled this as should not be. I'm saying to myself, this is wrong. They shouldn't be experiencing this. I shouldn't be experiencing this. This shouldn't happen this way. This is unjust. This is unfair. All of that is an illusion. All of that is an illusion. Again, if you think about it, the concept of unjust and unfair is black and white. Therefore, it's of the matrix. It's of the matrix. Nothing is unjust. Nothing is unfair. And I can tell you that when I'm up my spiral, I truly understand what authentic appreciation of all that is, looks like, and feels like, and live it. And yes, you do live it more and more and more of the time as you move through the practice. But since there's no finish line, we have all come to understand that the magic is really in the journey of discovering this stuff and getting better and better and better at it. I love that I'm not perfect at Tya. I will never be perfect at Tya, and I created it. I am the creator of the Tya practice, and I am not perfect at it, nor will I ever be. I am moving forward in my getting better every day at practicing this. Absolutely. Getting more proficient all the time at being a Tya practitioner, or a Tyist, as we like to say. And in doing so, I'm understanding that this journey of further discovery, that I'm not trying to get to the core of that onion. The peeling away the layers makes life better and better and better and better. And there is no ceiling to this. So there is no core to that onion. You're just going to keep peeling away layers. And that's okay, because that gets really fun. You do sort of get over a hump where you really start to understand it. It starts to really click and show up in your life. And then to me, it's when you really are authentically able to meet your obstacles in joy. When you are in that space, then you have done enough work to sort of cross over into new territory where you're certainly operating outside the matrix. If you want to call that beyond 3D or 5D or 10D or 12D or 22D or whatever, call it whatever you want. All those things are just human created terms that we create for ourselves to sort of understand the energetic realm. But the meeting the obstacle and joy part is great. And it's worth all of the work that you put in. And I can tell you what I found in the Tya practice. Since I created it, I take a long time to discover and build new tools and do all of that. I've certainly gotten faster at it as I've become more proficient. But because that new vibration of this belief system is now created, when I bring people into Tya Academy, I see people transforming so much faster. What took me years to figure out, people are figuring out in weeks. And that's because the vibration is created and other people are choosing to move into that vibration and then create their own unique version of it, which is what Tya is all about. It's not about following rules at all. In fact, it's following process and shifting your belief system and opening your mind up to a very different belief system than the matrix. but it's not a religion. So there's no rules. There's no right or wrong. There's no, you have to do this and you can't do that. You're not going fast enough. That impatience, I used to be as impatient as anyone you've ever known. And that impatience, again, we have duality. So that impatience drove me to want to create tools and want to get out there and want to teach it, want to create all of this structure. And I've done that for the last few years. The last couple of years, though, I have really learned to be patient with all of this. And I understand that patience comes with trust, that impatience really is fear driven. And as I systematically detune my ego, thus detune fear and judgment, I have detuned the fear that made me so impatient. And now I am much more able to just move through things and experience them as they show up and not need to rush to solving them. When my house burned on December 19th, it's now what, February 22nd. So last year, at the end of the year, when the house burned, I authentically met that experience in appreciation. The house that I spent a year building is on fire. I hear it being destroyed by the firemen that are in there putting the fire out. And I was so at peace with that experience in the moment, understanding that the clarity and the gifts of that would arrive at some point, and I would know them when they showed up and I would appreciate them deeply. That led me back to being appreciative of the experience that I was in. And I didn't sit and meditate and I've got to go off into nature somewhere and get into a meditation circle or do something, like that to find the meaning in it. I knew that in my simple appreciation of it, the meaning of it, the gifts of it would just be revealed to me, period. And that's exactly what has happened. That's exactly what has happened. That's what I'm sharing with all of you right now, is the clarity that has come from that experience, because I allowed it to arrive when it arrived. I didn't go hammer away at trying to find it. It's taken a little bit of time. It's taken some weeks, a couple of months, but I'm in that space now. And I think that that's just going to continue to unfold for me. And my preference is to be able to meet anything and everything that crosses my path the way that I met that fire. So if you have any questions about trust, if you're struggling with trust, if you're challenged by trust, I just want you to know that continuing to practice the 4 pillars of Tya will deliver heightened ability to trust, and will deliver an ongoing expansion of your ability to trust. Because the more detuning you do of your transgressors, and the more detuning you do of your own ego, the more you learn to shut that stuff down or tone it down and not pay as much attention to it, not fuel via your ego, and allow yourself to be more of your natural source being. We used to say source connection. I quit saying that, or I've tried to quit saying that, because it's not really a connection. It really is something that is you. You are a being of source. Source does not leave you. Source is always there, always there. The ego simply overshadows it, drowns it out. And there's a function to that. That function of the ego drowning out the source being is delivering the rocky human experience. But notice, a lot of us that are in teaching such as this started out with a very rocky human experience that's labeled should not be. Oh, that's terrible. Well, how does a child attract being, abused in some way, or poverty or sickness? That I can't believe that a child would ever attract that. I'm just not going to believe that. Well, then that's your belief system, and it's okay. But if you're choosing the Tya belief system, you're choosing to believe that we vibrationally align with a set of circumstances prior to birth, prior to conception, that we align ourselves vibrationally with a set of conditions that are going to create an experience for us. And that may be indeed placing ourselves in the path of being this sick or abused or impoverished child. And in doing so, what happens? Well, we can come and have that experience and have that end our physical journey in short order and return us to our completed state. And we know from the source perspective, there's nothing wrong with that. The matrix is a thing saying, well, that's so wrong. It's so bad. No child should ever experience that. No parent should ever experience the losing of a child. But source doesn't see it that way, because from the source perspective, we're eternal beings. This human life is always temporary. This physical life is always temporary. All physical things are coming and having a physical journey of chance. Chances are you may move through a long period of linear time in it. Chances are you may not. But it's not just chance. It's a vibration, and we absolutely project into a specific vibration as a match to have a set of circumstances that we're going to experience in the physical realm. And we're not fully comprehending that there is value in all of those experiences when we're in the matrix, because the matrix tells us otherwise. The matrix is telling us that we're supposed to live a long life, and we're supposed to live an abundant life, and we're supposed to live an obedient life. We're supposed to comply. We're supposed to do what the world tells us we're supposed to do and be what the world tells us we're supposed to be. But we see evidence of a lot of people breaking out of that. As we're becoming more intelligent as human beings, we see younger generations. Every younger generation is more evolved in their experiencing of the matrix. They're not as black and white anymore. That's where all of this gender identity, non-binary stuff is coming from. I never heard of that when I was a kid. I don't know that even really existed when I was a kid. I know there were transgender people certainly when I was a kid. But as far as someone claiming to not be a gender at all or being gender fluid, those concepts were not available to me in my childhood at all from the Matrix. But the idea that gender identity and sexuality and all these other aspects that we call reality are a human construct, I did figure that out along the way, not in childhood, but after that. I figured out that, okay, all this stuff is human creation. And when we judge ourselves against human creation, we are choosing to do that because we weren't born with, we didn't project in with all of this fear and judgment. We learned it because we project in as beings of source, and then we learn to be human beings. We learn to operate our physical vehicle. And it takes a long time to learn to operate that physical vehicle because we're such sophisticated beings. And in being such sophisticated beings, we create a heightened experience of contrast. We create a heightened experience of things that we really want to experience, and we're going to figure out how to do it, whether it's getting online or jumping on an airplane or backpacking or driving or whatever it is. We're going to figure out how to go out and experience the things that we want to experience. Education, books, the endless amount of information that's online now. We can educate ourselves about anything and everything and really open our minds up to all sorts of thought processes and belief systems. But they're all human created belief systems, and we all default into something. The stream teaches us that as long as we're in physical, we are going to operate in a belief system. You can say that you're going to be a source aligned being all that you want, but don't think that that's going to take you out of a human belief system that's going to create a reality for you. It's not. I do not believe that. I have no evidence of that whatsoever. As source aligned as I am sure as hell not perfect, and I'm certainly not experiencing every single thing that I want. Compared to most humans, is my life abundant? Absolutely it is. But it's not everything that I want all the time, because once I experience that, what else will be left for me to do? Once I'm experiencing everything that I want, the only thing to experience would be the destruction of some of that, i.e. the house, so that I go back into a state of wanting expansion, wanting to experience something else, wanting to place another gift in my path, the gift of challenge. Because the gift of challenge is what expands us, is what motivates us to create a new desire in our ego. Desires are all created in ego, and have that desire come to be if we align with it, if we trust. So it's all about trust. And it is daily work, indeed. It is daily work. You can if you want to. We don't have rules. But I would guide you not to look at it as such a challenge or a struggle that I'm really struggling. You do struggle in this for a little while, but not forever. That's why I created boot camp, so you can get in and really immerse yourself in it and get the tools together to end the struggle. Because the deprogramming is something that we can all start working on as soon as right now. And it's all about recognizing what is a human created belief system that I have simply bought into, and what is appreciation of all that is. Appreciation of all that is source. Anything less than that is ego. They both serve a purpose, but it's all about what you're going to allow to be the chief driver of your human experience. And you can detune ego. You can detune the matrix, which is the collective ego of humanity. You can detune that stuff enough to allow your source state of being to be in the driver's seat of your human journey, and thus experience more trust, which is going to deliver more of the three big things that we talk about all the time in the practice that are a result of the practice: joy, clarity, and abundance. Those three things. Source delivers those three things: joy, just in being; clarity, and understanding clearly what the world is all about, what your purpose is, what expansion is all about, what polarity is all about, what appreciation of all that is looks like and feels like. And then abundance, because abundance is always delivered from source, always, always. So anything that we discern as a preference, we can experience. And that experience from the source perspective is something that in physical is always going to be an experience that is moved through, meaning it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. This concept, yet again, of having to lock something down for eternity, for till death do we part, and all of that stuff, again, that's the matrix. That's the matrix. Signing on to something until death assumes that you're always going to be the same level of sophistication that you are right now, and that's not true. Whether you practice Tya or Catholicism or atheism, whether your belief system is centered around politics, Buddhism, whatever it is, it's a belief system, and it's delivering an experience for you. And there's no wrong belief system. I love that in the stream message. There's no wrong belief system. All of those, anybody that's in any of those belief systems or any others, even people that have projected into being very controlled by their government, even more so than we are in the United States, being very controlled in what they are able to consume. And we know there are places on the planet that the population is experiencing that. They're still expanding in their experience. They still have sovereignty over their own mind, and they get to think their own thoughts, even if they don't get to do the things physically they would maybe discern as a preference. But they're having an expansive journey nonetheless. And in that state of being completely controlled and all of that bondage, they are having an expansive journey. It may be one that we don't understand, but they're in that vibration. Therefore, they're having that experience. And it's not for us to judge, and it's not for us to question. And to think that we need to somehow free them for that is actually a very arrogant thought, because we're thinking that we know better and that we're here to deliver them from something that they're experiencing that simply isn't our vibration, so it's not our preference. So returning ourselves to trust, that's the key to all of it. Understanding yourself and understanding your world to the point to where you're always able to return yourself to trust anytime you realize that you're somewhere less than that. That the somewhere less than that is a natural experience to have, but you can always return yourself to trust. And when you trust your abundance, it shows up. When you believe the universe takes care of you, no matter what, it will. I've experienced it firsthand. I know that it will, because I have been in situations where I am not experiencing the matrix version of abundance, but I'm still living in what I call abundance. It's amazing. It really is. It really is amazing. If you allow the universe to care for you and stop worrying about the matrix's definition of that, you will be cared for. You will be safe. You will be okay. Always, and trust. Thank you so much for watching.